Hey everyone, and welcome back to OntarioCryptids. I don't know about you guys, but here in Toronto we are having a bit of a heat wave. The good news is summer is approaching. Time to get ready to enjoy some hikes, camping, or just hanging around in your backyard or local trails. The other good news is when summer approaches, that means my allergy will be gone for a year at least, right? Until spring comes back around next year. Okay, as you know, I'm always looking for great stories to be shared here in this channel. So if you have a story that you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Today we have some exciting encounters to share with you all. For one of them, we'll be flying to Germany. I know you will enjoy these encounter stories. I know I loved reading them. Okay, so go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on the couch or chair and sit back and relax. This first encounter takes place on Labor Day weekend of either 1984 or 1985. This takes place in York County, Maine, and it takes place in an unusual location, and I also have to add, it's an unusual encounter. It took place on Labor Day weekend, 1984 or 85. A friend and her sister were taking their kids on a road trip before school started. Me and my friend, and I will call her June, were dating twin brothers, and so we were invited to go along. We spent the weekend hitting all the tourist places in New Hampshire: Six Gun City, Santa's Village, Storybook Land, and all the kids-friendly places. When we headed back for home, we entered Maine from the south. It was late morning, a fine sunny day and warm. The kids wanted to go swimming, so we pulled off at Old Orchard Beach and piled out of the van. June and I were walking together as the kids headed for the bathhouse to change. Soon her two boys sprinted by us. She said she would probably go with them and keep them out of trouble. I said sure, no problem, so she walked on ahead. I had never been to the beach before, so I wandered through the amusement park. It was quiet, no people, no one at the rides or the concession stands. When I came to the beach side of the park, I paused and looked up towards where my friends were. There weren't a lot of people there either. There was a young couple with a black or chocolate lab with a bandana around its neck. Then I stepped out onto the sand. I was standing in a corridor of slowly swirling gray mist. It led across the beach, and at the end I could see blue water and sky. I could hear these beautiful, compelling voices calling me. They said, "What are you doing? Why are you still here? Come to us." I wanted to go. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I was going to walk down the corridor and into the water. I would just swim until my physical body dropped away and I would be free. I felt no fear, no regrets whatsoever. But before I could take one step, a voice spoke loudly into my left ear. "You cannot do this. You have friends here. You are not alone." The voices in the corridor were gone. The next thing I remember, we were all in the van heading up the road towards home. I have no memory of the time between that and the disappearances of the voices and the corridor. I did have a heartache for 3 days afterwards, just a little zing of pain. It took me years to realize that the voices that told me I couldn't walk down that corridor was more important than the beautiful siren's song. Also that I was meant to be alive for some reason. For those who might be wondering, no, I have never been back to Old Orchard Beach. nor would I go alone. All right, so this one takes place in October of 2019, and it takes place in Siebenburg, Germany. I hope I said that right. If you don't know, Sieben Mountains are what's known as seven mountains, and they're a range of hills of Germany in central uplands on the east bank of the Middle Rhine, southeast of Bonn. I don't know about you, but this looks like a beautiful area to live in. Hey folks, it took me some time, but I think I'm finally ready to share my encounter with you now. It happened in Western Germany, and what I'm about to share is a genuine truth. It all started with a horrible animal screaming sound outside my house at night, which I already compared to all wildlife animal sounds recorded from zoology institutes. But nothing comes close to it. It kind of sounded like a woman screaming in agony, but then again, even worse. It felt like I could feel the sound vibrating in my veins. It's hard to describe, but it was really scary. I live in a tiny house next to the forest in the mountains. It was a dark October night, and I laid in my bed, which is in a corner. Right in front is a window which is always half open, and above me is just a flat roof. There's gardens all around the house. At first I heard one animal creature scream, and then there seemed to be two of them. They sounded very close and wouldn't stop screaming for minutes. The next thing I heard was something heavy running through the garden under my bedroom window, followed by heavy branches breaking at the height of my bedroom, which is on the second floor. I also heard a loud rush of air or wind when the creature was running around. In the next second, this animal or creature jumped on my roof, so in that moment it was right above me, maybe 2 or 3 meters away. And it was at that moment when things started to get messy and very confusing to me until this day. First, I want to point out that this animal creature sounded so heavy when it landed. I don't know any animal species that big around here. It sounded massive and therefore surreal. Also, the quickness of its movement seemed surreal. After the creature jumped on my roof, it started to run from one side to the other. It first sounded like it was something extremely heavy on 2 legs. But that suddenly changed to what sounded like something extremely heavy on 4 paws. I remember sitting straight up in bed, right under it, with an intense pulse and my mind just trying to process what I'm hearing. What kind of creature is this? That was also the turning point when I seriously felt threatened. Since I'm a girl living alone in a tiny house and didn't really have any protection to fight something massive like this off, just knives or pepper spray, which I'm quite sure would have been useless. So I decided to do something stupid, I suppose. I thought maybe I could shock it, scare it away, so I hit against my bedroom window with a flat hand, as hard and loud as I could. What happened next messes with me until today. Not even a second passed after I hit the glass when this creature hit it right back from outside. So it must have been sitting right above me at that moment and reached down to my window. And it reacted so quickly it was surreal. The sound of what touched my window glass sounded like a mix between a big paw with claws and feathers. This reaction and the way it sounded put me in a kind of shock, I guess. I realized I'm quite screwed at that moment. But whatever it was very intelligent, huge, and wouldn't back off. That's how it felt to me. As if it was saying, "You have no power here. I'm always one step ahead. Know your lane." Basically, I just froze. I'm on my bed with my back against a wall, and all I could do is stare at where it hit the window. I was too scared to close it. I was too scared to even breathe. Then it suddenly jumped, left my roof, which sounded again like a massive weight would jump off in the air. I have never shared this encounter before because I felt pretty alone not knowing what this creature was or if anyone would believe me. Until last night, when I went on Reddit to look for someone from Germany who experienced something similar, and I was lucky. I found a post 24 days ago. He and his hunting buddy heard the same screaming sound from a cow's field. Then they were chased for a short time by something but couldn't see it. Reading about his encounter made me want to step forward with mine as well. Since there are quite some confusing aspects detailed to my encounter, it's a bit hard to find someone with a similar experience. So I genuinely hope that this post reaches someone who can relate and who'd be open to share his or her experience as well. If you would like to know more about my encounter, please feel free to ask me any questions. All right, so this is the last encounter of the day. It takes place in 2000, and it takes place in the Rocky Mountains of Idaho. Now, I think we've covered other stories that have taken place in the Rocky Mountains region. I think Idaho and Montana, if I recall. But in any case, let's get on with this story. This is a story that was told to me by one of my firearms instructors named Chris. In northern Idaho, deep in the Rocky Mountains, there is a cabin that runs a cattle ranch. Chris's brother knows the owner and invited Chris to spend a weekend up there for some hunting and hiking. The brothers gathered their supplies and a few of their best pals and took off to the mountains. As they were driving up the winding Idaho roads, his brother issued a cryptic warning. Sometimes the cattle escape into the woods and need to be tracked down. The owner of the ranch has seen strange creatures in the forest. I'm not messing around. Everyone laughed and didn't take the warning seriously. Within the hour, they arrived at the cabin. On the second day in the mountains, Chris decided to go on an afternoon hunt with one of his friends. They drove down a back road onto the forest until the road ended a few miles from the cabin. They got out and walked into a nearby creek, then split off with one person going upstream and one person going downstream. After walking for a ways, Chris came to a silty deposit where he noticed a foul odor and a broken pine tree that was green and healthy. The tree trunk was snapped in the direction of the water. There were 4-finger indentation in the tree bark like it had been squeezed and pulled down by a massive hand. Sap bubbled from the compressed bark. On the ground, he discovered numerous huge footprints with 5 toes stamped onto the silt. He followed them and counted 73 beautiful tracks that led to another snapped green pine tree. This tree also had a big finger mark on it and was facing in the direction of the water. Tracks danced all around this tree. The smell was now overwhelming. Chris became so spooked that he immediately ran back to the truck. His friend had shot a deer and they quickly drove back to the cabin with it. At the cabin, Chris explained the situation to everyone. That night, 6 men from the cabin armed themselves, each with a rifle and a pistol, and returned by truck to the end of the dirt road. They parked the truck facing the creek and then walked on foot to the edge of the water. It was a moonless, starry night, but the horrible smell still lingered. The band of hunters waited and at one point howled into the night, calling for the creature. Chris thought that he could hear something moving in the forest, but the creek was too loud to be sure. He decided to walk alone upstream and into the woods to get a clearer sound. He could hear that there was definitely something big making its way through the pines. He ran back to the hunters and warned them that something was approaching. Moments later, from both up and downstream, they began to hear branches snapping and footsteps thudding. The sounds came from both directions, closing in on the group. The footsteps grew louder and louder until the booming crunch of a log under the surface of the mud spooked them so much that they all ran back to the truck. In less than 2 minutes, they made it back to the vehicle. The moment they fired up the truck and turned on the headlights, they could see 2 massive bipedal creatures moving up the creek in the location they had just retreated from. The creatures' eyes shined from the truck's headlights. All of the men had clear shots, but all took flight back to the cabin in terror. The stench greeted them upon their return. They feared that with the slain deer outside, the creatures would be drawn to the property. They all slept curled up with their guns that night, but no more signs of the creatures would be found. "I told you, little brother, I wasn't effing around." He figures he ran into a family of them. There was a wild look in his eyes as he turned to me and said, "I know they exist." Well, that marks the end of this episode. But I have to say, these were 3 fantastic stories, all very different. I've heard of a siren story once before, and I believe it was while I was watching David Paulides. He was actually reading a letter. He usually opens up by reading his emails that he gets. And somebody had written, it was a male though, had written something very similar, how he was enticed by the sound and felt like he needed to enter the water. Amazing. But this is the first one that was actually forwarded into me. I didn't have to go looking for this one. So thank you so much for sending me that story. I truly appreciate it. And then we flew to Germany for, I'm not sure what that was. It was some type of humanoid. Reading more into her story, she had a little bit more of a description that made it sound like it could have been a flight creature of some sort, just because of the whooshing and the wings and the claws, how it was on all 4s and then on 2 legs. I've very interesting story. And then the last one, which we were all familiar with, which is a story, or I should say the type of story that I normally share in this channel. So all great, fantastic stories, all very well written, which makes it a lot easier, by the way, for me to share them with you. But fantastic stories to say the least. And so if any of these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. And I would be honored to share your story on this channel. And actually, before I end this off, I do have one more thing I want to say. And that is that this channel is about sharing your encounter stories. And one thing I don't appreciate, I do love hearing people's comments as long as they are, how do I say this? I don't want to say that, you shouldn't leave a skeptical comment, so to speak. But what I don't like seeing on this channel is when somebody outright says that this story is false or fake. I don't like that. I do like, I guess you can say, constructive comments or stuff like that. But I don't like somebody cutting up a story that is forwarded to me to share on this channel. You weren't there. I wasn't there. Only the person telling the story was there. So, if you don't think it's true, then don't leave a comment. Just keep that to yourself. But I do appreciate all the other positive comments and People leaving comments about their, what they think it might be. I have no issues with that. I just don't like somebody cutting up someone's story. That's not appreciated at all here on this channel. It is a safe environment, as I indicated before, for you to share your stories. So, on that note, thank you all so much for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you all next week.